What's up, everybody? I'm Andre Khatchaturian, joined today by a very special guest, three-time Super Bowl champion with the New England Patriots, Matt Light. Matt, how are you today?
Andre, I am doing good. Although I'd like it if it warmed up just a little bit. This 0-degree weather is a little brutal, but it does remind me of the old days back when we first started going to Super Bowls. So maybe cold weather and Super Bowls go together.
I mean, it's been a pretty cold playoffs to begin with. Not even just the last round, previous round, the Chicago Bears game against the Rams. It was it was a cold game there. And then obviously you had the Broncos Patriots last week. And it's interesting, you had the Brady era start off in a blizzard with the game against the Raiders, which you were a part of. And now you might have this new Drake May era begin with another blizzard in Denver. What are your whole thoughts about those two parallels?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of things that remind me of the '01. Obviously, it's a different game. It's a different league, I mean, the way that the game is played today is wildly different in a lot of respects. But I think there's also the idea that tough-nosed, hit him in the mouth, smart, fast, and nasty, as we used to always call it, can still reign supreme, right? I mean, yeah, if a guy goes over the middle and gets blown up, it's probably going to be a 15-yard penalty. If the quarterback gets blown up, you're probably going to get a penalty and a fine. I'm not a big fan of that stuff, but I think what Coach Vrabel's done is he's brought back the discipline and the toughness and demanding that, everybody goes out there and plays a very physical game. And by the way, that's how football should be played. We put pads on for a reason. It should be violent. I love violent, action within the game. And I think that those guys have done a really good job of being the tougher football team throughout the entire season.
Yeah, one of the things I love about the NFL is in other sports, it seems like when you do a rebuild, it can take years. Like there's so many teams in Major League Baseball, like the Pirates, they've been bad forever. But in the NFL, you can just if you draft well, if you have a good draft, if you hire the right coach, have the right quarterback, you can turn it around, much like the Patriots did, back-to-back 4-win seasons to where they are now. What are your thoughts on how quickly this team has rebuilt basically from scratch?
Well, I mean, it starts with the leader, right? It always does. And in this case, Mike Vrabel and his passion for the game and the way that he approaches the game and the way that he relates to the players, the coaches that he brought in, that wanted to walk alongside of him, knew his system and then the players, that some of the guys that he brought in the offseason. I mean, he put a lot of work in a very short period of time, put a lot of work into this team. And look, it could be all for naught if the players didn't buy in, but if you listen to these guys in their interviews and you watch how they've handled themselves through the good times and the not so good times, they're definitely buying into, his program and his style. And that's gone a long way, man. So it's not surprising to me that he's had success. But the reality is most coaches don't, right? They don't have success, period,
Right.
Let alone in year one.
I mean, he's definitely a culture guy. We saw it in Tennessee. He took a team with Ryan Tannehill at quarterback to the AFC Championship. So he's had this experience before, and it's pretty remarkable. A lot of detractors for the Patriots this year saying that they got this far because of their schedule. And yes, statistically, they had the weakest schedule in the NFL. But I look at it, I see, big wins against Buffalo, this playoff run, holding Justin Herbert to 3 points. Now the Texans are wondering if they had the right quarterback for the future after what the Patriots did to CJ Stroud. What are your thoughts on these people saying that, the Patriots, they got the benefit of an easy schedule?
Well, look, I'm actually a little bit, I guess I'm lost on how you can predict schedules anymore in terms of, who's got a tougher schedule than someone else. I mean, I get it, right? You can look at, the previous year and their record. You can look at the players they have and their playmaking ability. But let's be honest. One of the things that dictates success more today than ever before is how many guys are going to go down with an injury, right? The injuries dictate the success of many of these programs. it's not the talent, right? I mean, I'd love to be talking about the fact that the rate of injury has gone down and most of these guys are going to be healthy, but I think we all know that these teams today are going to lose a lot of their starters due to injuries. And I've been saying this for a long time. If you don't practice and if you don't hit the way we used to, you're not going to be able to last the entire season. And so I think there's reasons why you see these guys going down. But again, going back to the strength of schedule, these teams that were supposed to be really good became less than really good or even mediocre due to the loss of some of their better players. That's obvious, but I don't think people take that into consideration. So, look, these guys earned the right to be where they are. 16-3, right? They've won a lot of games. They've played really well, all season long, and they proved it in the playoffs. So, strength of schedule means nothing in this case.
Uh, Now you are also partnering with Davios and the Mount Light Foundation in the Stairway to Seven sweepstakes, which is associated with the Super Bowl. Tell us about the sweepstakes and what's involved and how are you involved with it as well?
Well, Steve DiFilippo, the owner there at Davios, he and I go back a long way. We've done a lot of these sweepstakes in the past, and man, I'll tell you, it's amazing what winning does for an entire community, for an economy. And for us, we've run the Light Foundation for 25 years, working with kids, in some really cool, unique outdoor-based programs. I would encourage anybody to go to mattlight72.com to check out the work we do at the Light Foundation. But, when we do our fundraising, we come up with cool things like this. And what this is we call it Stairway to Seven, right? Stairway to7.org. And it's your opportunity to go to the Super Bowl, 2 tickets, airfare, 3 nights hotel, pre-party with Guy Fieri at his tailgate, and then post-game party with the Patriots. I mean, the package is unbelievable. Dinner with Steve and I out in San Francisco at one of the top steakhouses, and somebody's going to win this for as little as $10. So it's one of those things where anybody can jump in, anybody can take part in it. And when I make the call on Thursday to let somebody know that they just won this epic trip, I think it's going to blow their mind.
That's a fantastic experience. Any Patriots fan would love to have this awesome experience. Not only you get to the game, all of these other experiences, thanks to the Mount Light Foundation and Davios. Davios, by the way, their egg rolls, unbelievable. They're my favorite dish on the menu over there. So you got to check that out.
You got to get them all too, man. You got to go for the whole platter. You can't.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. You get every single flavor on your plate. It's fantastic. Now, Matt, we are the Armenian Sports News, so I want to kind of ask you a couple questions related to us as well. And obviously, one of the Patriots staffers throughout the Super Bowl runs was Berj Najarian, a very prominent Armenian in the community. He's done so much for Armenians in Armenia and in the diaspora. What were your experiences like playing for Berj? And do you have any interesting stories about him as well throughout your Super Bowl runs?
I laugh only because I probably caused him more angst and he probably has more gray hairs due to me than any other player potentially. I was the guy that was always blamed for some practical joke or something that went a little awry within the system. And I'll never forget one day I walk in and Bears' office was immediately upon entering the stadium, he was on the left. And you had to go through his office to get to Bill's office. And I'll never forget walking in and he's like, not good. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, you shouldn't have done that. And I had actually kind of forgot that I had put a shocking remote in Bill's office so that when he touched his mouse on his computer, that it would shock him horribly. And he was referring to that, of which I would deny immediately. And eventually, I had to go in, and Bill got a little fired up at me, and Bears was not all that happy, but it was a funny moment. We laugh about it now, but I've had a lot of interactions with Bears, and And through my pranks and my practical jokes, I put him in some very uncomfortable positions. And we've always been able to laugh about it. But, his job, man, it's amazing the things you have to juggle to be there for Bill and to answer all the questions and deal with the players and all their issues and try to keep everybody on track, man. It takes a village to keep about 60 Neanderthals in line, and Bears did a really good job at it for a long time.
That's amazing. How did they find out that you had done it?
Well, I was kind of always the guilty party. Once you're known for doing something like that, you're always going to get blamed first.
That's so funny. That's a great story. Thank you for sharing that. Bill Belichick, obviously, you talked about him. You played for him, legendary coach, 8 Super Bowls, 6 as a head coach. First ballot Hall of Famer resume. But the story around the league this week has been how he wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer. And this was a huge shock for Patriots fans, NFL fans, even Patriots haters were like, whoa, what happened here? One specific writer, Vahe Gregorian, who's Armenian for the Kansas City Star, I respect the fact that he went out there and explained why he didn't vote for it, because a lot of people don't do that. But his reasoning, I still don't agree with it. He said he didn't vote for him because there was a lot of other older generation players who it may be their last chance to get in, so he voted for them. And he just figured, oh, well, Bill's eventually going to get in anyway, so let me give these votes to these older generation players who may not have another chance to get in. What are your thoughts on that and just the whole snub in general?
Well, I think you have to look at the process and say that there's an issue with the process, right? And I say that because, take for example his concern. He didn't want to see a guy get dropped from the ballot forever, so I'm going to vote for him instead of a first ballot guy like Bill, right? I mean, that's a problem. If that's the case, right, then we need to address that, because the reality is people put a lot of importance or a lot of weight on being a first ballot selection. And maybe that's not right. Maybe it shouldn't matter when you go in, but I think the reality is it does matter to a lot of people. And then I look at it and I say, okay, so what's the intent of the Hall of Fame? Well, I think it's pretty simple, right? You want to recognize the individual who's had a huge impact on the National Football League, right? And okay, so in some cases, like a Bill Belichick, anybody that's a potential first ballot Hall of Famer, they must have done something extraordinarily good for the National Football League. They must have made a really big impact. And I think that's what you see. If you look up the first ballot Hall of Famers, they've been dynamic to the sport. And I don't think you could argue that Bill Belichick has been dynamic for the NFL. So to me, I would agree with your statement that his reasoning doesn't make sense. If his job is to assess within the parameters of the voting body who is or is not a first ballot Hall of Famer, you should not have the ability to not put Bill Belichick's name on that. So I like to break things down that simply. And I think that it does send a sign of disrespect, whether it's intentional or not, whether you're just voting for someone you think is never going to get another chance if you don't. It does send a disrespectful message to a guy like Bill Belichick. But maybe most importantly, it takes attention away from the guys who are definitely going in this year. And I think that's the worst part of this whole thing. Will Bill Belichick be in the Hall of Fame? Absolutely guaranteed, no questions asked. But it's not necessarily just about him. It's about the guys like Drew Brees, who I played with in college, who's, a finalist, right? It's about these other guys too. And that's what we should be talking about right now.
It's a great point. Hadn't even thought of it that way. It has taken attention away from the people who are going in this year's class. It's all been about this snub. So that's a very interesting point. Matt Light, thank you so much for joining us. And anyone watching this, Stairway to Seven sweepstakes, you can enter. The winner is announced Thursday before the Super Bowl at 2:00 Eastern. which is sponsored by Davios and the Matt Light Foundation. So, Matt, thank you so much for coming and talking to us today, and best of luck to the Patriots in the Super Bowl.
Well, I appreciate it, man. I hope as an Armenian that is going to join us out there in San Francisco and Armenian Nation. I mean, I know you guys are strong. I know you guys are awesome. I love the history, and maybe I'll be talking some shop with one of your listeners as we're eating dinner with Davio's owner Steve DiFilippo in San Francisco, buddy. Wish you the best.
I would love that. I would love for an Armenian to win this. Thank you so much, Matt. Appreciate it.